One of government's primary responsibilities is to protect its citizens. A basic way of carrying out this duty is to provide emergency shelters during disasters and emergencies. Government entities or third parties like the Red Cross usually operate these shelters. The Americans with Disabilities Act generally requires emergency shelters to provide equal access for everyone to the many benefits that shelters provide, including an accessible facility, services, information and effective communication, a place to sleep and eat, and other basic comforts. Some facilities, particularly those built after 1991 or extensively altered after 1991 when the ADA went into effect, may have few or no barriers to accessibility and are good choices for shelters. But other older facilities may have barriers to accessibility, which you should try to remove, if possible, before you use the facility as a shelter. To determine the level of accessibility in a potential emergency shelter, you must do it before a disaster strikes. The following series of videos and pictures will explain how to do that.
Hi, I'm Dave Campbell, your host for this video series. This video series and companion hard copy checklist, which you can find in the resources section of the website, will help you determine the level of accessibility at specific locations and to what extent you can accommodate people with disabilities. If a barrier is present, we'll suggest some practical solutions. Just a reminder, this video and checklist do not cover all the building standards for accessible design from the 2010 ADA Standards for Accessible Design. Rather, we designed these videos to be a practical tool for shelter managers and volunteers. We hope it'll help you address the most important basic building features for handling a wide range of people during a disaster, including people with disabilities. For a comprehensive, unabridged checklist, visit the ADA Department of Justice website by clicking on this link. Let's get started. Here are the tools you'll need when you're looking at the accessibility of a potential emergency shelter. First, bring a smartphone or a digital camera. You'll want to take photos of any elements of concern you found during your survey. It's likely the other people in the decision-making process will need to review information about the facility you are surveying. A second tool you'll need is a metal tape measure. 16 feet or longer should do the trick. You'll need this to measure things like the clear opening of a standard hinged door. The third tool you'll need is a level. It should be at least 24 inches long. You'll use this tool to measure whether a ramp, a parking space, or a walkway is too steep or not. That measurement is called slope, which is the proportion of a vertical rise to a horizontal length. It can be either a ratio, like 1 to 12, or a percent, like 8.33. So a 1 to 12 ratio slope would mean 1 inch of vertical rise for every 12 inches of horizontal length. To measure slope, rest one end of the level at the highest point of the sloped surface, and lift the other end until the bubble is in the middle of the tube. This is the level position. Then measure the distance from the bottom end of the level to the sloped surface below. If the distance is 2 inches or less, then the slope is a 1 to 12 ratio or less. The maximum running slope generally allowed for ramps is 1 to 12. Now, cross slope is the slope or grade of a surface perpendicular to the running slope. For measuring cross slope, if the distance measured from the level position is a ½ inch or less, then the slope is a 1 to 48 ratio or less. The maximum cross slope allowed on an accessible route is 1 to 48. The fourth tool you'll want to have is a door pressure gauge. This allows you to see how many pounds of force is necessary to open a door. They are available to purchase online. The force to open interior doors with automatic door closers should be no more than 5 pounds of force. To use it, place it on the door handle, give it a push in, and then see where the black O-ring ends up. That gives you your pounds of force. If it's too high, adjust the screw on the top of the closer. If the door is too difficult to open, one option is to prop it open. For exterior doors, the ADA has not specified a required force, but it should be as low as possible given the prevailing weather conditions. The last tools you'll need are a printed out checklist along with a clipboard and some pens. Again, to download the checklist, click the link on the screen. Before you start evaluating a facility, take a couple photos that identify the facility, like a shot from the street and a close-up that shows the name of the facility and the address. The best way to evaluate a shelter is to think through the steps a person would take as they approach the shelter and use its services. Start with areas where people will get out of vehicles, like passenger drop-offs, loading zones, and parking areas. Then, move to the various shelter entrances. Once you're inside the building, check out the hallways and doors to the various service areas like eating and sleeping. Then locate the restrooms and any food distribution areas, medical service areas, and relief areas for service animals. If these areas have barriers that would prevent access for people with disabilities, particularly for people who use walkers and wheelchairs and people with visual impairments, this video series will offer temporary adjustment options you can make. You may also want to talk to the facility owner to see if there are any plans in place to remove the barriers. You can mention that if they pay money to remove barriers, there are significant tax write-offs available.